The letter from Yeshua's emissary Shaul, Paul, to the Messianic community in Galatia, Galatians. From Shaul, an emissary, I received my commission not from human beings or through human meditation, but through Yeshua, the Messiah, and God the Father, who raised him from the dead, also from all the brothers with me, to the Messianic communities in Galatia. Grace and shalom to you from God our Father and from the Lord Yeshua the Messiah, who gave himself for our sins, so that he might deliver us from the present evil world system in obedience to the will of God our Father. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. I am astounded that you are so quick to remove yourselves from me, the one who called you by the Messiah's grace, and turn to some other supposedly good news, which is not good news at all. What is really happening is that certain people are pestering you and trying to pervert the genuine good news of the Messiah. But even if we, or for that matter, an angel from heaven, were to announce to you some so-called good news, contrary to the good news we did announce to you, let him be under a curse forever. We said it before and say it again. If anyone announces good news contrary to what you received, let him be under a curse forever. Now, does that sound as if I were trying to win human approval? No. I want God's approval, or that I'm trying to cater to people. If I still were doing that, I would not be servant of the Messiah. Furthermore, let me make clear to you, brothers, that the good news, as I proclaim it, not a human product, because neither did I receive it from someone else, nor was I taught it. It came through a direct revelation from Yeshua the Messiah. For you have heard about my former way of life in the traditional Judaism, how I did my best to persecute God's messianic community and destroy it, and how since I was more of a zealot for the traditions handed down by my forefathers than most Jews my age, I advanced in traditional Judaism more rapidly than they did. But when God, who picked me out before I was born and called me by his grace and chose to reveal his Son to me so that I might announce him to the Gentiles, I did not consult anyone, and I did not go up to Jerusalem to see those who were emissaries before me. Instead, I immediately went off to Arabia and afterwards returned to Damascus. Not until 3 years later did I go up to Jerusalem to make Kepha's acquaintance, and I stayed with him for 2 weeks. But I did not see any of the other emissaries except Yaakov and the Lord's brother. Concerning these matters I'm writing about you, I declare before God that I am not lying. Next, I went to Syria and Cilicia. But in Yehuda, the Messianic congregations didn't even know what I looked like. They were only hearing the report. The one who used to persecute us now preaches the good news of the faith he was formerly out to destroy, and they praise God for me. Then after 14 years, I again went up to Jerusalem, this time with Barnabas, and I took with me Titus. I went up in obedience to a revelation. I explained to them the good news as I proclaimed it among the Gentiles, but privately to the acknowledged leaders. I did this out of concern that my current or previous work might have been in vain. But they didn't force my Gentile companion Titus to undergo Brit Milah. Indeed, the question came up only because some men who pretend to be brothers had been sneaked in. They came in superstitiously to spy out the freedom we have in Messiah Yeshua, so that they might enslave us. Not even for a minute did we give in to them, so that the truth of the good news might be preserved for you. Moreover, those who were the acknowledged leaders, what they were makes no difference to me. God does not judge by outward appearances. These leaders added nothing to me. On the contrary, they saw that I had been entrusted with the good news for the uncircumcised, just as Kepha had been for the circumcised. Since the one working in Kepha to make him an emissary to the circumcised had worked in me to make an emissary to the Gentiles. So, having perceived what grace had been given to me, Yaakov, Kepha, and Yochanan, the acknowledged pillars of the community, extended to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, so that we might go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. Their only request was that we should remember the poor, which very thing I have spared no pains to do. Furthermore, when Kepha came to Antioch, I opposed him publicly, because he was clearly in the wrong. For prior to the arrival of certain people from the community headed by Yaakov, he had been eating with the Gentile believers. But when they came, he withdrew and separated himself, because he was afraid of the fraction who favored circumcising Gentile believers. And the other Jewish believers became hypocrites along with him, so that even Barnabas had led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not walking in straight path, keeping in line with the truth of the good news, I said to Kepha, right in front of everyone, if you, who are a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, why are you forcing the Gentiles to live like Jews? We are Jews by birth, not so-called Gentile sinners. Even so, we have come to realize that a person is not declared righteous by God on the ground of his legalistic observance of Torah commands, but through the Messiah Yeshua's trusting faithfulness. Therefore, we too have put our trust in Messiah Yeshua and become faithful to him in order that we might be declared righteous on the ground of Messiah's trusting faithfulness and not on the ground of our legalistic observance of Torah's commands. For on the ground of legalistic observance of Torah commands, no one will be declared righteous. But if, in seeking to be declared righteous by God through our union with the Messiah, we ourselves are indeed found to be sinners, then is the Messiah an aider and abetter of sin? Heaven forbid. Indeed, if I build up against the legalistic bondage which I destroyed, I really do make myself a transgressor. For it was through letting the Torah speak for itself that I died to its traditional legalistic misinterpretations, so that I might live in direct relationship with God. When the Messiah was executed on the stake as a criminal, I was too, so that my proud ego no longer lives, but the Messiah lives in me. And the life I now live in my body, I live by the same trusting faithfulness that the Son of God had, who loved me and gave himself up for me. I do not reject God's gracious gift, for if the way in which one attains righteousness is through legalism, then the Messiah's death was pointless. You stupid Galatians, who has put you under a spell? Before your very eyes, Yeshua the Messiah was clearly portrayed as having been put to death as a criminal. I want to know from you just this one thing. Did you receive the Spirit by legalistic observance of the Torah commands, or by trusting in what you heard and being faithful to it? Are you that stupid? Having begun with the Spirit's power, do you think that you can reach a goal under your own power? Have you suffered so much for nothing? If that's the way you think, your suffering certainly have been for nothing. What about God, who supplies you with the Spirit and works miracles among you? Does he do it because of your legalistic observance of Torah commands, or because you trust in what you heard and are faithful to it? It was the same with Abraham. He trusted in God and was faithful to him, and was credited to him to his account as righteousness. Be assured, then, that it is those who live by trusting and being faithful who are really children of Abraham. Also, the Tanakh, foreseeing that God would consider the Gentiles righteous when they live by trusting and being faithful, told the good news to Abraham in advance by saying, "In connection with you, all the nations will be blessed." So then, those who rely on trusting and being faithful are blessed along with Abraham, who trusted and was faithful. For everyone who depends on legalistic observance of Torah commands lives under a curse. Since it is written, "Cursed is everyone who does not keep on doing everything written in the scroll of the Torah." Now it is evident that no one comes to be declared righteous by God through legalism, since the person who is righteous will attain life by trusting and being faithful. Furthermore, legalism is not based on trusting and being faithful, but on a misuse of the text that says anyone who does these things will attain life through them. The Messiah redeemed us from the curse pronounced in the Torah by becoming cursed on our behalf. For the Tanakh says everyone who hangs from a tree, everyone who hangs from a stake comes under a curse. Yeshua the Messiah did this so that in union with him, the Gentiles might receive this blessing announced to Abraham, so that through trusting and being faithful, we might receive what is promised, namely the Spirit. Brothers, let me make an analogy from everyday life. When someone swears an oath, no one else can set aside or add to it. Now the promises were made to Abraham, to his seed. It doesn't say, and to his seeds, as if to many. On the contrary, it speaks of one, and to your seed. And this one is the Messiah. Here is what I'm saying. The legal part of the Torah, which came into being 430 years later, does not nullify an oath sworn by God so as to abolish the promise. For if the inheritance comes from the legal part of the Torah, it no longer comes from a promise. But God gave it to Abraham through a promise. So then, why the legal part of the Torah? It was added in order to create transgressions until the coming of the seed, about whom the promise has been made. Moreover, it is handed down through angels and a mediator. Now, a mediator implies more than one, but God is one. Does this mean that the legal part of the Torah stands in opposition to God's promises? Heaven forbid. For if the legal part of the Torah which God gave had itself the power to give life, then righteousness really would have come by legalistically following such a Torah. But instead, the Tanakh shuts up everything under sin, so that what has been promised might be given on the basis of Yeshua the Messiah's trusting faithfulness to those who continue to be trustingly faithful. Now, before the time for this trusting faithfulness came, we were imprisoned in subjection to the system which results from perverting the Torah into legalism. Keep under guard until this yet-to-come trusting faithfulness would be revealed. Accordingly, the Torah functioned as a custodian until the Messiah came, so that we might be declared righteous on the ground of trusting and being faithful. But now that the time of this trusting faithfulness has come, we are no longer under a custodian. For in union with the Messiah, you are all children of God through this trusting faithfulness. Because of many of you are immersed into the Messiah, have clothed yourself with the Messiah, in whom there is neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor freeman, neither male nor female. For in union with the Messiah, Yeshua, you are all one. Also, if you belong to the Messiah, you are seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise.